6. The topic of our today's lesson is plant nutrition. Without wasting time, let's begin. Today we'll be looking at photosynthesis. Okay, we're going to be looking at photosynthesis because this is how plants, first of all, manufacture their own food, and this is how plants able to use their manufactured food for themselves and store for later use, which we eventually harvest and use for ourselves. So we're going to look at, or we're going to investigate and find out the need for chlorophyll. We're going to find out what chlorophyll is used for, the need for chlorophyll, light, carbon dioxide, and what they're used for in photosynthesis. We're going to look at the chlorophyll as a green pigment in chloroplast, which enable the plants to trap the sunlight energy for photosynthesis, and so on and so forth. Now let's take a look at the elementary part, the first part. Photosynthesis is just a process whereby the plant, take in carbon dioxide through the stomata of the leaf, So carbon dioxide goes into the leaf by diffusion, by process of diffusion. And water comes into the plant or the plant leaves by also diffusion from the root hair cells. The root hair cells of the plant in the soil absorb water and mineral ions, and this water diffuses into the xylems and then move up against the water gradient and goes to the leaf. When it gets to the leaf, there will be a chemical reaction that will take place between the water and the carbon dioxide that came in through the stomata of the leaf. But this will not happen unless there is the presence of a big energy called the sunlight energy. And this sunlight energy is being trapped by the presence of chlorophyll that is found in the chloroplast of the palisade. Okay, that is found in the palisade layers, in this palisade layer of the leaf. We're going to look at the structure, the internal structure of the leaf. Okay, so the palisade layer contains the chloroplast, and the chloroplast contains the green pigment, which is the chlorophyll that traps the sunlight energy. Once the sunlight energy is there, the sunlight energy activates the reaction between carbon dioxide and water, meaning cause them to react. Without this energy, these two will be looking at themselves. They will not react. So the carbon dioxide and the water will react in the presence of this sunlight energy to produce what we call the glucose, Okay, this glucose, not only glucose they produce, they also produce oxygen. So they make two products. So the requirement for photosynthesis, if they are asked in the exam, are carbon dioxide and water, and probably sunlight energy and sunlight energy. So these are the basic requirements, and the product from photosynthesis is the glucose and the oxygen. Okay, the glucose that is manufactured, that is produced. Now this is the equation. The glucose that is produced is being used by the plant, and some of it that is not used or needed immediately will be converted to sucrose, which is sent to the storage location of the plant. And upon when the plant needs it, especially at night, when the plant is not photosynthesizing at night, they need the glucose. They will convert the sucrose or the starch back to glucose for their own use. Okay, during the day they make glucose, during the night they need it. When they need it, they reconvert it from the starch or from the sucrose back to glucose for their own use. Now the oxygen they manufacture, they don't need it, so they give it out. The plant, it diffuses out through the stomata to our environment. So this is why it's very encouraged for us to plant trees around our environment, because if you plant a lot of plants or trees in your environment, the trees will always give you oxygen, while they take the carbon dioxide in your environment. So the pollution, the carbon dioxide, the methane gas, the global warming gases like the carbon dioxide that are around your environment, the plants will absorb them and use them to photosynthesize and make food. Why they give you oxygen, they manufacture oxygen. So when you build a house, it's very encouraged to plant trees around your house. This will help to reduce the global warming and climate change, as it were. Now this is the equation, the symbolic equation for the chemical reaction taking place between glucose and water to produce between carbon dioxide and water to produce glucose, which is the food C6H12O6 is the glucose plus oxygen, 6 molecules of oxygen as it were. Okay, so this is what photosynthesis is all about. This is what we'll be talking about in the whole of this chapter. So what I've just done, I've done the overview of what is to come. I've done the whole overview of what we're going to do in this place. Now let's take a look at where do plants get their food. Let's start from the very beginning, the basic thing. Where do plants get their food? Okay, animals, we go in search of food. We look for food everywhere, and we find the food, and we cook, and we eat. But plants, do they have to walk about to look for food? No. How do they get their food? They manufacture their own food. They don't go about looking for food. Since they are adapted for being able to manufacture their own food. They have the capability and the ability to make their own food. Why? Because they are able to diffuse into themselves the carbon dioxide that we don't need. We breathe out carbon dioxide. The plants take the carbon dioxide, react it with water in the presence of sunlight energy, react it with water to produce glucose. So plants, they make their own food. They do not have to go search for food. We animals, both humans and animals which are categorized as animals, we go in search of food. The plant, like the rice plant, manufacture the rice grain that we eat. The beans plant manufacture the beans grains that we eat. The corn plant manufacture the corn grains that we eat, that we consume. So every plant, the apple plant manufacture the apple fruits that we eat. So every plant manufacture the specific food. Cassava plant manufacture the cassava tubers that we eat. The yam plant manufacture the yam tubers that we harvest and we eat. So plants manufacture their own food. All plants, all flowering plants has the ability to manufacture their own food. Now what we need is we take what they store, we go there and take. Now let's move on quickly. Green plants get their carbon and energy through a process called photosynthesis. Yes, the green plant gets their carbon and energy through photosynthesis. You know, during photosynthesis, the plant manufacture what? Glucose, which is the energy they will need, and they also manufacture oxygen, right? They also manufacture oxygen. They get rid of the oxygen, but they get the carbon dioxide from the air. They get the carbon dioxide from the air, which amounts to what they need and what they need to use for their photosynthetic process. Now let's move on quickly. So we're going to find out how do we test for starch, the presence of starch. We're going to talk about this. This is an investigation. If you want to test for starch, the presence of starch or glucose, whatever you want to call it, glucose. You know, glucose, in chapter 4, we say glucose is a monosaccharide, right? We identify monosaccharide, disaccharide, polysaccharide. The starch and cellulose, they are polysaccharide. We've already studied that in chapter 4. So if you don't know this, you pause this video, you can go watch our chapter 4 and acquaint yourself with the categories of carbohydrates, okay, with the categories of starchy food. Now the starch, if you want to test for it, what you do first is to pluck a leaf and put it in a tube and put water in the tube and boil it. So you boil the leaf. You boil the leaf to make it very soft. You boil the leaf to make it soft, and then later you take out the leaf. You take out the leaf and add the iodine. When you add iodine, okay, in the boiling process you have to put alcohol. Okay, you put the leaf inside alcohol. Okay, you put the leaf inside alcohol and put water in a beaker. Put water in a beaker. Put the test tube in the beaker, but put alcohol together with the leaf in a test tube, and heat. So when you heat, this leaf becomes soft, and then you bring it out and add iodine. And when it turns blue black, it means the leaf contains. First of all, when you heat with alcohol, this will make it colorless. Then when you now add iodine, you know this green color will first of all disappear when you heat with alcohol. Then after that, you put in iodine solution, and when the leaf turns blue black color, then it means the leaf contains starch. Okay, now let's move on quickly. Now we can cover a leaf, a part of a leaf, with any substance, and do not allow maybe sun to hit the leaf, that part of a leaf. You can go and do an experiment. You go to a tree, don't pluck the leaf. In the tree, cover one part of the leaf, and then leave the rest to receive the sun. And then after maybe a long time, come, pluck that leaf, bring it out, and test this side and this other side. You see that here will not turn blue-black at the end of the day. Only this side will turn blue-black. So showing that the part that is not exposed to the sun do not contain the starch or the whatever you need. Okay, now let's move on quickly. These are just investigation. You can pause the video and carry out this investigation as it were. Now let's go to what conditions are essential for photosynthesis. What do we need? We've mentioned it from the beginning. Remember I said the first page was an overview of the whole work. The first page that we explained was the overview of what is to come. Now what do we need for photosynthesis? First of all, you need the plant needs the sunlight. If you look at this picture, you will see the rays of the sun penetrating the thick forest. You can see the rays of the sun penetrating the thick forest, which means the plants have to get access to the sunlight. Without the sunlight, the plants will not be able to manufacture its own food. That's the first thing we need. We need the sunlight. Another thing we need carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxides are in the air from pollution. Okay, carbon dioxides are released from fossil fuel. A lot of it from fossil fuel. A lot of it from us when we breathe out. We breathe out carbon dioxide. So this gas is available in the atmosphere in very large quantity. In fact, the plants cannot even use all the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere as we stand now. Okay, unless we have to do something, find how to remove all the carbon dioxide in the air. And this is depleting our ozone layer and making global warming a reality. Okay, and a huge climate change effect as a result of this emission of a lot of carbon dioxide. This is one of the gas, global warming gas, greenhouse gas. Okay, this is one of the greenhouse gas. Methane, carbon dioxide, they are one of the greenhouse gases. Okay, so carbon dioxide is another requirement for photosynthesis. So we need the sunlight, we need carbon dioxide. The next thing we need the chlorophyll, because if the chloroplast in the palisade layer of the leaf do not contain chlorophyll, remember the chlorophyll is responsible for the green pigment and the green colorations of the plant. You see the plant is green. Most plants, if they are healthy, they have one color, which is green. That is possible because of the presence of chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is manufactured by the glucose they make, the glucose plus the nitrate plus magnesium. So the plant needs glucose, the plant needs glucose, so I'll just use G to represent glucose. Glucose plus nitrate, I'll use capital N to represent nitrate, plus magnesium in order to make chlorophyll. Magnesium Mg. Okay, let's use the symbol of magnesium. So the plant needs these three things to make chlorophyll, and this chlorophyll is responsible for the greenness of the plant. And it's also, apart from the greenness of the plant, it has another unique function. It's able to trap the sunlight energy. It's the magnetism, it's the magnet, natural magnet that the plant has to be able to direct the rays of the sun into the plant's leaf. So it's able to trap the sunlight energy. So it's a requirement. The sunlight, the carbon dioxide, the chlorophyll, and the fourth one is the water. Okay, the fourth one we can talk about a suitable temperature. Because if the temperature is too high, then it may not be very suitable for photosynthesis. And if it's too low, it may also not be suitable. So this one has a direct relation with the sunlight. Okay, has a direct relation with the sunlight. The fifth one is the waters. These are all 5 requirements for photosynthesis to take place. In case in exam, they ask you to give the requirements for photosynthesis or the ingredients of photosynthesis. 5 of them: the sunlight, the carbon dioxide, the chlorophyll, the suitable temperature, and water. The plant needs to absorb water and the water needs to be transported through the xylem cells to the leaf, to the palisade layer of the leaf, to the leaves, in order for photosynthesis to take place. Now let's go to the next one. Now what happens during photosynthesis? The first of all, what is photosynthesis? What is photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is the process whereby plants synthesize carbohydrate. What do we mean by synthesize? Manufacture, make carbohydrates from where? What do they use to make carbohydrate? And what are carbohydrates? The starch that we've talked about, the glucose. which is the simplest unit of carbohydrate. The glucose, which is the simplest unit of carbohydrate, is just like when you say protein, the simplest unit is amino acid. The glucose is the simplest unit of carbohydrate. So the photosynthesis is the process whereby the plant synthesize or make glucose or carbohydrate or starch, whatever name you want to use, make glucose from what? From water and carbon dioxide. From water, because these are the real basic ingredients. These are the real basic ones. Remember, the rest are just like other variables to make the process happen. Some are mediative variables, mediative factors. Some are, these are the dependent factor. In case in the exam, in the biology paper 6, they start asking this question. Dependent variable, independent variables in paper 6, in practical, alternative to practical. So the dependent variables are the waters and carbon dioxide. The mediative factor is the sunlight, right? The mediative factor is the sunlight and so on and so forth. The sunlight and the chlorophyll. Okay? So these water and carbon dioxide are the dependent variables. These are the basic thing requirement that the plants need in order to make the glucose or the carbohydrates. Now, water and carbon dioxide are the raw material for photosynthesis. They are the basic raw material that is outrightly needed in order for the plant to make its own food. If you don't have these two ingredients, there's no way the plants can make glucose for you or make carbohydrate for you. Is that okay? Now, oxygen is a product, is a byproduct, is a product, is like what is manufactured, is what is already manufactured. It's not a requirement or a raw material. It's not a raw material, it's a product you make. Like a factory, for example, if you have a factory that is making a particular product, the raw material you use to make the product, they are called your requirement or your ingredients. Then the product, what you manufacture, is the product. Like oxygen is one of the products that the process of photosynthesis helps us to make. Is that okay? Now, oxygen is released during the process, is released to the environment. So, like we said in the initial stage, you need to plant a lot of trees if you want to have available oxygen around you. Now, the process is given below. Now, this is the process. Carbon dioxide react with water. Okay. Then, in this mediation, you put chlorophyll at the bottom and you put sunlight on top. Meaning, the chlorophyll traps the sunlight energy. That's the meaning. Chlorophyll helps to trap the sunlight energy in order for the glucose, which is the carbohydrate, to be manufactured, or the starch, and oxygen. The oxygen, the plant do not need oxygen. Just like the way we human beings, when we make carbon dioxide, we don't need it. It's toxic to our body. Oxygen is toxic to the plant, so the plant has to get rid of it. Okay, human being needs it, plant don't need it. So we get it, we use it in our own respiration. Respiration is opposite of photosynthesis. We need this one to break down the food that we've eaten, to release energy from the food that we've eaten, the digested food that we eat, to release energy out of the food. The oxygen has to react with the glucose, okay, the digested glucose, to release energy for the body use, for the body metabolic activity. Now, the balanced chemical equation for the reaction is like this. You should be able to write this chemical equation both in word form and in symbol form. You should be able, okay? So carbon dioxide, this one is balanced, the 6 molecule is because we are balancing it. The carbon dioxide CO2 plus H2O, which is water, and the presence of sunlight energy produces glucose. Glucose is 6,6H12O6. You have to put this in your mind. 6,6H12O6 plus oxygen. Now we put 6 here, we put 6 here, we put 6 here. Why? To make the number of atoms in the left side to balance with the number of atoms on the right side. Is that okay? Okay, that's that for that. Let's move to the next stage. Now, the next stage is to look at what are the limiting factors in photosynthesis. What factors affect the rate of photosynthesis? This one is every day in the exam, in graphical format, in whatever format, both in multiple choice questions and in structured questions. So we're looking at what are the limiting factors that affect photosynthesis. Number one is the light intensity. Remember, we say the amount of light, available light, which is a dependent of temperature, determines how much this thing can be made, right? Now, here we're looking at, you write the rate of photosynthesis plot against light intensity. So a sketch, a graphical sketch of the rate of photosynthesis on the vertical axis against light intensity. Because here we are considering number one factor as our light intensity. We're going to consider other factors. Okay, when you plot that, you will see that the photosynthesis increases as the light increases. You know, this is increase from 0. As you go to the horizontal right, the light intensity is increasing. And as you go up the graph, the rate of photosynthesis is increasing. At the beginning of the reaction, as the light intensity increases, look at it, as the graph is going like this, you can see an exponential increase till before you get to a stable value, like a constant value. So as the light intensity increases, say at the beginning, as the light intensity increases, the rate of photosynthesis also increases. This is how you explain it in the exam. As the light intensity increases, the rate of photosynthesis as well increases because it's going up and going horizontally this way, right? Till you get to a certain level, optimum level, what we call the optimum level, okay? Beyond this temperature, it no longer helps the rate of photosynthesis. There's no more a product made. There's no more product made when you reach a certain temperature of 20 degrees Celsius. When you reach 20 degrees Celsius, this becomes just a fixed value of it. So it's like the reaction has gotten to the end. There's no more increase in the rate at which carbon dioxide is produced or starch is produced. There's no more increase when you get to a certain temperature. So at 20 degrees Celsius, you can see that you've reached a certain number. Let's say here you manufactured so gram or so kilogram or gram is so to say of carbohydrate. So at this temperature, you have reached your certain level. Now let's take a look at the effect of increasing the light intensity on the rate of photosynthesis at 0.03% carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide is at this percentage, 0.03%, and at 20 degrees Celsius. Okay, the available carbon dioxide is at 0.03%. You know, carbon dioxide in the air is 0.04. Right? Carbon dioxide in the air is 0.04% compared to all the gases in the atmosphere. You know, carbon dioxide is not the only gas in the atmosphere. In fact, nitrogen take about 78%. There's so much nitrogen in the atmosphere. Oxygen is about 21%. Right? Nitrogen is about 78% of gases in the air. Oxygen is about 21% of all the gases in the air. Carbon dioxide, as much as it is, as crying as we are, it's just 0.04%, right? Available. This is oxygen. This is oxygen. Why this is nitrogen? This is nitrogen, right? The available air. The available gases in the air. The available gases in the air. This is nitrogen. And carbon dioxide is between 0.03 to 0.4%. You see, it's very small, right? But this 0.03% or 0.4% is already overwhelming our atmosphere. Okay? Imagine we have carbon dioxide up to 20% in the atmosphere. I think nobody can stay in planet Earth anymore because the gas is not good. The gas is, to be honest, dangerous. The gas is dangerous and it's not good. So because it's dangerous and it's not good, because the gas is dangerous and it's not good, so as small as 0.03 or 0.04, it's already causing a lot of problem in our ozone layer. It's already causing a lot of problem. So at this level of carbon dioxide, when the temperatures are 20, this particular rate of photosynthesis is taken. So number one factor that limits the photosynthesis, that affects the rate of photosynthesis, is light intensity. Now let's take a look at another factor. Okay, the second factor is carbon dioxide itself. Carbon dioxide concentration. Look at the rate of photosynthesis, light intensity, and carbon dioxide concentration. Now we have two graphs. The first one has 0.03% of carbon dioxide. The second one has 0.13. No, 0.13 is way greater than 0.03. It's way greater. Okay, at the same temperature. Even though the temperatures are same at 20, you can see the rate of photosynthesis increased way in graph 2, way above in graph 1, right? The rate of photosynthesis increased tremendously higher, way higher compared to in the case of a graph, the first graph, graph 1. Graph 1, it has given us a certain value of photosynthesis at this level. Let's say 20% of carbohydrate or starch is produced. 20%, let's just use percentage, okay? Here, if you trace it, it's like 70% is produced. It's like 70% is produced. If we are using percentage to model our discussion, okay, 70% of carbohydrate or starch is produced. Now, what is the difference? The temperature is the same. What changed? Every other parameter is the same. The light intensity is the same, right? What changed? The only thing that changed is that we increased the concentration of carbon dioxide. We increased the concentration of carbon dioxide. So, with that, we have concluded one of the factors that affect the rate of photosynthesis is carbon dioxide concentration. Carbon dioxide. So this is factor number 2. Meaning if you increase the concentration of carbon dioxide in a particular plant area, the plant will make more food. That's the meaning. In a simple terms, if you increase the concentration of carbon dioxide in the plant area, keeping every other factor constant, then the plant will make more food. The plant will make more food. That's what we mean by that statement. Now let's go to number 3 factor, temperature. Now we're going to change the temperature from 20 to 30. Another factor that is affecting the rate of photosynthesis is the temperature. Now see, you can see we keep the concentration same. This time around, you bring the rate of now we bring we make the concentration to be the same, right? We make the concentration to be same as 0.13, 0.13 for both cases. We increase the concentration of carbon dioxide to 0.13 and 0.13 in both cases, right? Now, when you do that, when you increase the concentration, and when you leave the concentration to be same, but you change the temperature this time around, you can see like here is like 70%, if we so to say, 70% of food has been manufactured when the temperature is 20 degrees, but the rate of carbon dioxide, the concentration of carbon dioxide is 0.13%. Now here it's still 0.13%. However, we have increased the temperature. When we increase the temperature, we can therefore say here the rate of photosynthesis or manufacture of the glucose or starch is at 90%. Okay, so which means temperature has a big role to play as a factor, a limiting factor that affects the rate of photosynthesis. Remember, we mentioned light intensity as one of the factors that affect the rate of photosynthesis. We mentioned the number 2. We measured the concentration, the carbon dioxide concentration as the second factor. Number 3, we measured the temperature. You must be able to explain this in the exam, and you must be able to understand the graphical illustration when it's given in the multiple choice or when you're being asked to plot the graph. Here is what is the effect of very light intensity on the rate of photosynthesis. Okay, when you summarily, this is just an investigation. When you increase the light intensity, like we said, the temperature increases. When temperature increases, the rate of photosynthesis increases, unless you get to optimum temperature, unless you've reached the optimum temperature. But as you keep increasing the temperature before the optimal temperature, the rate of photosynthesis increases. Is that okay? So light intensity or temperature is a big factor affecting the rate of photosynthesis. Now let's move on to what is the effect of very carbon dioxide. Okay, carbon dioxide concentration affects the rate at which the glucose is being manufactured. So at a constant temperature, if you increase the carbon dioxide concentration, more starch will be produced, more starch or carbohydrate will be produced. Okay, now what happened to the glucose that is formed during photosynthesis? What happened to the glucose? First of all, there are many things that happen to glucose that is made during photosynthesis. Number 1 is that the glucose is used immediately by the plant. When they make it, they need it, they use it, right? That's the first thing. The plant, every photosynthesis is happening in the leaf, right? The leaf of the plant, every plant, the leaf is responsible for carrying out photosynthesis. Now, first of all, when they make glucose, they use the glucose and save the excess. You know, they can't use everything because they make a lot, they manufacture a lot. So they cannot use everything. They save some and use some, right? In the daylight, they use the glucose for themselves, right? The glucose form faster during the day because of the presence of sunlight in the daylight. Because of the presence of sunlight, the glucose is manufactured very quickly and easily. Now, the excess glucose is converted to starch because the plant cannot consume all its manufacturing at the same time, consuming everything simultaneously. It's not possible. So it consumes the ones it can, and the remaining one, the plants keep them and save them and convert them. How do plants keep the glucose? They don't keep the glucose as glucose. Plants cannot save glucose as glucose. What they do, they convert them either to sucrose or convert them to starch and store them. They convert them to starch and transport them from the point of manufacture, which is called the source, from the point of manufacture, which is called the source, and they transport them through the phloem. They transport them through the phloem vessels. They transport the converted starch from the point of manufacture, which is called the source, to the point of usage, which is called the sink, or point of storage, which is called the sink. Okay, so this is what the plants do. They manufacture the glucose, they convert them, the excess one, and store them and transport them to their storage location. When they need them, they convert them from the starch back to glucose. Is that okay? They reconvert them back to glucose. Okay. Now let's go to, you say the glucose react with nitrate and magnesium ion to form chlorophyll. I've already explained this from the beginning. The glucose the plant manufacture will react with nitrate and magnesium ions to form the chlorophyll. So this is how plant manufacture chlorophyll. They manufacture the chlorophyll by themselves by using the glucose they manufacture and the nitrates they get from the soil, nitrate mineral ions. You know, the xylem vessel carries the water and mineral ions. One of the minerals is the nitrate from the soil and the magnesium from the soil. So they react together to form the chlorophyll. And the glucose also react with nitrate and other mineral ions to form amino acid. React with one of the other minerals is sulfur. Okay, the glucose will react with nitrate and sulfur and other mineral to form amino acid, which is the protein. So for the plant to make protein food, first they manufacture the glucose, which is carbohydrate, and that glucose will react with nitrate and sulfur and probably some other elements, or just those three, and make amino acid, which is the protein. Okay, which is stored for later use or for whatever purpose, and we go harvest. Glucose form fat for storage also. The glucose form fat and they store them. And these are used in the cellular respirations and the synthesis of new phototropism. Okay, now let's move on to the next stage. Why is photosynthesis important? Why is photosynthesis important for plants to carry out? Why do plants have to photosynthesize? What is the significance of photosynthesis? What's the importance? Why is it important to human existence? Now, photosynthesis is very important because it helps the plant to manufacture their own food, right? It makes chemical energy available to plants. Because if plants don't manufacture food, can animals seed the food to eat? No. The animal eats on grasses, which is the food that is manufactured by the plant, or crops and whatever they find. These are food that are manufactured by plant. Without photosynthesis, there will be no food for animals to eat. So this is one reason why photosynthesis is super important for living things. Now, another reason why photosynthesis is super important is that photosynthesis helps to remove the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It helps to remove the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and replace it with, as much as possible, with oxygen. The carbon dioxide is a pollutant gas. It's a greenhouse gas, which is depleting our ozone layer and making the environment too harsh for us to live in, making the earth warmed, making our earth inhabitable for us. So the plant, what they do for us, they help us to trap this gas that is depleting the ozone layer and use it to make food. They use it to make food. So they are helping us to remove the dangerous gases in our environment and thereby using it to make food for us. Another importance of photosynthesis is that energy is stored in fossil fuel through photosynthesis. Yeah, through photosynthesis, the petrol we have takes place because petrols are formed from the decays of plants and animals of thousands of years under the seabeds. Without photosynthesis, the plants will not be able to make energy or make food that will be stored that will eventually change to fossil fuel and oil. Okay, so photosynthesis helps in the manufacturing of oil and the petrol oil that we have today. So photosynthesis is super important. We cannot overemphasize the importance of photosynthesis. Now let's go to the second section, the leaf structure and function of the plant. Now, in order to understand photosynthesis, you have to study the leaf. Okay, these are what the external features of a leaf looks like. If you take a look at this is the external structure of a leaf. This is the leaf blade. These ones are the blade, the leaf blades. All these ones, they are called the leaf blades. These ones are the leaf blade. Then this is what we call the branch vein. This is a vein, but they are branch vein in the leaf. They are branch vein in the leaf. Then we have the midrib. This is the midrib. This long one is our midrib, okay, of the plant, the midrib. So you should be able to draw and label the external part of a leaf. And then we have the branch midrib. The branch midrib is also here. Is that okay? And then we have the network of veins. Between the branches, between the branch veins, between two branch veins, you have what we call the networks of vein, just like networks of capillary in the animals. Okay. Then this big thing is called the stem. This is called the stem. And then this is the stalk, leaf stalk. Okay, this is the leaf stalk. This beginning, this one is the leaf stalk. Is that okay? So this is the external feature of a leaf. Okay, this one is for leaf of trees. Looks like this, while the leaves of grasses looks like this with parallel veins. Leaves of grasses have parallel veins, while the leaves of bushes and trees they have networks of vein like this. Okay, now let's go to the next one, the internal structure of a leaf. Okay, before we go to the internal structure of the leaf, let's have a recap of an overview of the things that we have discussed. We've talked about photosynthesis, and we say it's the process by which plants manufacture carbohydrate. The process by which what? Plants manufacture carbohydrates from raw materials using energy from the sunlight, using the energy from the sun, using the sunlight energy, right? And we've written the word equation and the symbol equation. You can see this is just balancing. That's why we show it in different color. Balancing. Carbon dioxide reacts with water in the presence of sunlight and sunlight to make glucose and oxygen. So this is an overview. We say the chlorophyll. The chlorophyll is the one that traps the light energy and enable chemical energy for synthesis of carbohydrate. Okay, so the light energy is converted to chemical energy. You know, when you make food, the food contains what we call chemical energy. So what is playing out here is that the light energy is converted to chemical energy because it's being used to manufacture food, right? Now the use of glucose is used for respiration in humans, right? And glucose is used for starch to release energy from starch. Glucose is used to release energy from starch. Also for cellular cell wall, okay? It's used in the cellular cell wall, and also to make protein, fat, and sugar. Glucose is used for the manufacturing of protein because you need the glucose to react with nitrate, to react with sulfur to make protein or amino acid. Also, glucose is needed for the manufacture of fat. Glucose is needed for the manufacturing of sugar, complex sugar. Okay. Now we talked about the factors affecting rate of photosynthesis. We talking about the limiting factors. What is the limiting factors? Something present in the environment in such short supply that restrict life processes. That's the meaning of limiting factors. Okay. Now we say dull day in summer. That's dull day in summer, and we have sunny days in the winter. Okay, in reference to temperature and light. Now let's take a look at the investigation we've talked about. we say chlorophyll can be variegated. You can get a variegated leaf. You detach, you remove starch from a leaf by de-starch. You call de-starch. To de-starch a leaf is to cover a portion of the leaf and don't let light to go into that area. Okay? So then we can test for starch to see whether there will be starch or there will be no starch. So all of this we've talked about them. We've also talked about another component of photosynthesis is the carbon dioxide. And we say carbon dioxide, the role it plays in the manufacture of food. Okay, so these are the areas we've looked at. And the third one, we talked about the sunlight as it affects the rate of manufacture of food. We talked about the light intensity as it affects the rate of photosynthesis. Okay, and we've used graph to illustrate all this. We talked about carbon dioxide as a very big factor for photosynthesis. We talked about temperature as a huge factor for photosynthesis. And then we talked about hydrogen carbonate indicator. Okay, this is an indicator to show the CO2 concentration, the presence of CO2, carbon dioxide. Hydrogen carbonate is an indicator to show if there is a carbon dioxide in a given solution. Okay, these are the colors as it shows. The highest is yellow. If you want to, carbon dioxide is present in anything, the color will be yellow. Next to high one is the orange. Atmospheric one is red. Magenta is the low. When you have purple, means the lowest, right? Lowest presence of carbon dioxide in that solution. Now let's take a look at the internal structure of a leaf. Let's take a look at the internal structure of a leaf. I think we'll explain it here more comprehensively from here, the internal structure. But let's just have overview from here first. What is the internal structure of the leaf blade? You know, the leaf we showed earlier on, it has internal structure. The leaf that looks flat has that flatness is under microscope contains all of this. The first is the cortical layer, and then you have the upper epidermis, and then you have the palisade layer, and then you have the spongy mesophyll layer, where you have the xylem and the phloem, xylem tube, xylem vessels, and the phloem tube as both as a transportation scenario. All these are the spongy mesophyll, and then you have the stomata in the end, and so on and so forth. So these are the basic internal structure, but let's take a look at it more holistically. Now here you have the cortical, the upper one, this upper one, the cortical. This one is like a cellophane. It does not allow anything to go, like water to go into the plant. It does not allow water to even get into the plant or anything to get into the plant. Okay. After that, we get the upper epidermis, this one, that looks like plant cells. We have the upper epidermis. These are the upper epidermis. And then after that, we have the palisade mesophyll. This palisade mesophyll looks more proper like the plant cells. Okay, we have the palisade mesophyll, which are closely packed together. And then after this palisade mesophyll layer, we have the what you call the spongy mesophyll. The spongy mesophyll covers the entirety of this one. The spongy mesophyll is the whole of this one. The whole of this one is the spongy mesophyll. Inside the spongy mesophyll, we have other things. First of all, the first one is the xylem vessels. This one here, which is found in the spongy mesophyll layer of the leaf, is the xylem vessels. Okay, and then we have the phloem tubes. These are called the phloem tube. Both the xylem and the phloem, they are used for transportation. The xylem is to transport water and mineral ions from the ground to the leaf. Okay, all the way to the leaf. While the phloem tube is used for transporting the manufactured glucose from the point of manufacture to the storage area or every other part of the plant, to transport the glucose to every other part of the plant. Okay, these two, they are called the vascular bundle. The xylem vessel and the phloem tube, both of them, this one, you see, is very vascular. These two together, they are called the vascular bundle, okay, or the vein. They are the vascular bundle or the vein in the plant. They are the vein in the plant. Is that okay? Okay, then after that, we have a lot of air spaces. These are called the air space. A lot of places for air to go in, carbon dioxide to go in, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and so on and so forth. water vapor, all of this can move around this place, the airspace. Then after that, we have what we call the lower epidermis. The lower epidermis has a little similitude with the upper epidermis. Okay, has a little similitude with the upper epidermis. The lower epidermis, what it does, it's to enable it contains what we call the stomata and the gas cells. These are the gas cells. This one and this one that open and close. You know, these two can close. They are called the guard cells. They can close and they open. When anything want to go in, it will open. When nothing is going in, it closes. It closes back. They are the gas cells. And this entrance is called the stomata. This passage where things go into the leaf and out of the leaf at the bottom side of the leaf. It's at the bottom side of the leaf. It's called the stomata. It's called what? The stomata. Now, in a tabular form, let's give every part and the functions it does in the plant. Let's take a look at the parts of the leaf, and the functions and adaptations, the job that is meant by the creator of the heavens and the earth, the job he wants it to do. Then we start with the chloroplast. The chloroplast they found in the palisade mesophyll of the plant. They are found just below the upper epidermis, and they contain the chlorophyll. They contain the chlorophyll, which helps to trap the sunlight energy for photosynthesis to take place. Which helps to trap the sunlight energy in order for photosynthesis to take place. Now let's take a look at the next one, the waxy cortical. The waxy cortical, like the name, waxy. Anything wax like candle, okay? It's like a waterproof. It stops water from evaporating from the top of the leaf easily. It stops water from evaporating from the top of the leaf, okay? It's like a seal, a cellophane. It does not allow water just to evaporate from the top of the leaf. Evaporation will only happen from the stomata, the bottom side of the leaf, from the stomata. So the waxy, the reason why the God of creation put the waxy on the leaf is to prevent the water to be escaping from the leaf. Because if the water is escaping, photosynthesis cannot take place easily. The next one is the gas cells. The gas cells are at the bottom of the bottom of the leaf, the bottom side, after the lower epidermis. The gas cells, what they do, they open and close the stomata. Their job is open stomata, close stomata. When there is need, they open the stomata. When there is no need, they close the stomata. So the job they do is to open and close the stomata, okay, by diffusion. The process is by diffusion. What goes in is the water vapor, or what goes out is the water vapor, carbon dioxide, okay, oxygen goes out, carbon dioxide goes in, okay, carbon dioxide goes in, oxygen go out by process of diffusion. The gas cells open the stomata so that carbon dioxide can go into the leaf and oxygen that is manufactured can go out of the leaf, right? Oxygen that is manufactured can go out of the leaf. And then it contains chloroplast. Now let's go to stomata itself. The stomata, what it does is to allow diffusion of gases in and out of the leaf. The stomata's the role, and the adaptation it has is to allow diffusion of gases. What are the gases? Oxygen and carbon dioxide. You know, oxygen goes out of the plant and carbon dioxide goes in. So the stomata is the one that enables the diffusion process to take place. Now let's talk about the upper and lower epidermis, because they're doing the same thing. So we can group them together. The upper and lower epidermis protect the inner cells. They protect all the cells that are inside. They protect them, like the palisade mesophyll, the spongy mesophyll, everything in the spongy, including the air spaces, including the vascular bundles, which comprises the xylem and the phloem. All of these things, the upper and the lower epidermis protect them. Okay, but this upper and lower epidermis, they do not have chloroplast. Why? That's why photosynthesis is not taking place in the lower and upper epidermis. Photosynthesis is taking place in the palisade mesophyll layer, because the palisade has many chloroplasts. The palisade layer contains many chloroplasts. Because it contains a lot of chloroplasts, photosynthesis is taking place right in the palisade mesophyll layer of the leaf. Now let's talk about the palisade. Now this brings us to the palisade mesophyll layer of the leaf. The palisade mesophyll layer of the leaf, they are very closely packed. I've talked about this earlier on. They're closely packed and they have so many chloroplasts. So as a result of that, it enables photosynthesis to take place. So photosynthesis is taking place in the palisade mesophyll layer of the internal structure of the leaf. Take note of this for multiple choice. Now let's move to the spongy mesophyll layer. The spongy mesophyll layer, just like we have shown, they are sparsely dispersed. There's a lot air spaces between all the cells that are found in the spongy mesophyll layer of the leaf, right? They're loosely spaced out, and they allow diffusion of gases to happen within them. They allow gas to go everywhere and move about, so on and so forth. Now let's go to the vascular bundle. The vascular bundle is the vein. Is the vein of the leaf. It contains the xylem, vessels, and the phloem tube. Okay, you must know what each of them does. The xylem vessels carry water and mineral ions from the root hair cells, take it over from the root hair cells and move it and transport it to the leaf. Transport it to the leaf of the plant. While the phloem tube transport the manufactured glucose from the point of manufacture to the point of need. Okay, now let's go to the now we are identifying them. The xylem transport water from the root, water and mineral ions, okay, inorganic minerals, from the root to the leaf, while the phloem transports sucrose, which is the glucose, we convert it to sucrose before we transport it. It transports the sucrose from the source to the sink. Remember I mentioned this before. From the source, the source is the point of manufacture, and the sink is the point of usage. Okay, now let's move on quickly. How is the leaf adapted for photosynthesis? I think we've explained all of this. Now let's move. How is the leaf adapted for photosynthesis? We've explained all of this. We say the chloroplast containing the chlorophyll in the message and traps the sunlight energy which enable photosynthesis to take place. We've explained this. Now let's move on to how do the gas cells control the size of the stomata. During the sunlight time, during the daytime, the gas cells manufacture the glucose. And in the sunlight, the gas cells manufacture glucose. They absorb water from the nearby epidermal cells, and then they become toxic. And they swell up, and hence the cells curve. They start to become curved around the stomata, and the stomata will stand therefore open. See, they become curved. Instead of being straight, they become curved, and then the stomata will be able to open like this. And then carbon dioxide can go in, oxygen can diffuse out by process. So gas cells swells and become toxic and open the stomata. They have to get swollen and open the stomata in order for gases to diffuse in. And we say the gas cells, they have the cell wall, they have the large vacuole, and they have cytoplasm and the nucleus. Okay, because it's a cell, it's a plant cell, it's a part of a plant cell. Okay, during the night, during the hot day, during an extremely hot day, the excess evaporations of water causes the gas cells to become flaccid. Because during the hot day, a lot of water will evaporate. We go out from here. We start going out from here. When they go out, these gas cells will begin to reduce again. Will no longer be turgid. Turgidity means contains a lot of water. So when the water evaporates as water vapor, then the gas cells begin to flaccid. The process, we say they are flaccid. The stomata closes again and reduces the water loss by leaf. So this is what is happening, opening and closing. This is the process that is taking place. How do carbon dioxide and water enter the leaf? By diffusion. We already explained all of this. Carbon dioxide enter the leaf. Carbon dioxide enter the leaf by diffusion, right? By diffusion through the stomata, okay? And enter the spongy mesophyll layer, which has a lot of air gaps, and travel all the way to the palisade, and finds its way to the palisade mesophyll layer of the leaf, okay? Because the spongy mesophyll layer has a lot of gaps, air gaps, okay? Then the water comes from where? The water comes from the stem, comes from the roots, and is being transported to the leaf. Is that okay? The part of water into the leaf is shown here. This is how the water comes. The water is coming from the xylem vessels. is coming from the xylem vessels in the spongy mesophyll layer. Remember, it's the one that breaks them from the root hair cells. Okay, but the carbon dioxide diffuses through the stomata into the leaf. Now let's move on quickly. I think this is you can pause at this junction. You can pause the video. You say write a word equation for photosynthesis. You should be able to write a word equation and also write a balanced chemical equation, symbolic equation. Write a balanced chemical equation for photosynthesis. So you're going to write both word equation and chemical equation for photosynthesis, and then identify the layers labeled P, Q, R in this leaf. The P, what is P? You can see P is upper epidermis, and what is Q? Okay, we leave this for you to do and see how much understanding you have. So with this, we've come to the end of our today's class. Thank you for joining us.